All right, sir, we are live. Welcome everyone to Meet the Masters. Tim Watson here. I'm joined today by Master John Auer. Hello, sir.
Good morning, sir. Good afternoon in your case.
So always one of the interesting parts of doing these interviews. I've gotten used to, I've done quite a few West Coast interviews lately, but I've done them from the UK, the Seychelles, which I believe was like 8 hours. It was like 8 o'clock my time, 5 o'clock his time. So it's definitely interesting, and is one of the interesting things I have to take into account when scheduling interviews.
For sure.
How's it going? You're in Oregon, correct?
Yes, sir. It's going pretty well here. Got nice weather out there today, and I guess we did find out though that we have a forest fire up the road about 35 miles, so kind of keeping an eye on that. Last year was in the summer, we got blasted pretty good with fire around the area.
And how are things with your dojang?
Things with the dojang are really good right now. Still, I think we're starting to pick up, getting new students. I'm getting some people back that I thought maybe were gonna stay out, but they've returned to training. You know, the pandemic was kind of tough for, I think, for a lot of people, a lot of us. But now we're getting more students in all the time. I think people are just ready to get out, do something. Can only stay locked up for so long, you know.
I know. Yesterday I was looking for a GUP ID in a pile of ones that I had set off to the side of people who just never came back, and then I was happy to see that it's like, oh, this person came back, this person came back. There was about 5 of them that had came back. So it's definitely promising, and we're kind of in the same boat. We've been very busy and happy that it has kind of came back that way.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yes, absolutely. We have a couple people saying hello. Master Marsh says, handsome guy.
Oh, hey.
I know him. Master Joe McCarty from Alabama says hello.
All right. Hey, guys.
And Lindsay Dudgeon from the UK says hi.
Oh, wow.
I know, they're all over the world. It's awesome.
I know. Geez.
From knowing you through, you know, seeing pictures of you on Facebook, and in the background you've got is that a bass guitar back there?
It is. Good eye.
Yeah. So have you been able to, I know you're a music guy. Have you done any music out since things are opening up a bit?
Yeah, actually we did a party last week, not this past weekend, but the week before. And we did one 2 weeks before that. The last one we did, it was 104 degrees here, outdoor gig. It was had to be by far the hottest gig that we'd ever played. I mean, the necks of the guitars were actually hot.
Wow. That's crazy. Outside of that, does the heat do anything to the equipment? Do you have any issues?
Oh, everything. Yeah, the guitars were going out of tune. I think we had to retune like every 2 songs.
Oh, wow.
The PA system was going in and out. I don't know if it was from heat or lack of power from the generator, but it was brutal. Yeah. But, you know, that being said, it's just like anything else we do. It was good to get out. Sure. And get around everybody else, just like we're used to doing.
Yeah.
But we haven't done for like 1.5 years. So right. I'd do it all over again.
Awesome. Just curious, what kind of music do you play?
Oh, we do this band, mostly classic rock.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect for this type of weather. Just hanging out, listening to.
Well, I'm an old guy, you know, you got to have that.
Master Malcury, we were just talking about him. He asked what flavor Kool-Aid he's sipping.
Oh, sir. I was going to ask him, what's the flavor of the day?
What's the story behind that? Can you share that?
Well, that goes kind of way back. We probably shouldn't talk about that here, though.
We can save that for after hours.
We might save that for, after hours.
Awesome. Yeah, so you're talking about way back. Let's talk about, we'll kind of get started with how did you get interested in joining the martial arts, or even, stepping foot in a class?
I started when I was 12 years old, originally in 1969. I began training. I grew up in Southern California. I grew up in Chula Vista, where Master Stine studio is. And I had always just been intrigued and fascinated with martial arts, guys like Bruce Lee and just different actors at the time. And I was just fascinated with the body movement. And I always kind of had this dream, in my mind that I want to be like that someday. I want to be like that, and so in 1969, I joined a place, I believe it was called Chula Vista Academy or Third Avenue Academy of Karate. I can't remember. It's been a long time ago.
Yeah,
but that's when I got my start there. It had to do with a lot of things led up to that, during my childhood. But mainly, as a child growing up, I was kind of, people don't notice it now, but when I was a kid, my ears stuck out, so, kids can be kind of cruel at times. And I'd get a lot of flack, people calling me big ears, flop ears, Dumbo, this kind of thing. Those were my nicknames, growing up through my childhood. And, with my attitude at the time, kind of cost me a few fist fights here and there, and, but, I ended up having some difficulties with some of the neighbor kids, and rather than standing up to them, I'd be like, I would actually ride my bike from Chula Vista High School. I would ride it, or the junior high, and I would ride it around the block and jump over my back fence to avoid this one guy, for instance. He'd just sit on his bicycle at the end of our road. We lived in a cul-de-sac, and right in front of Chula Vista High School on San Miguel Drive. I think Master Marsh may know where that's at, and Dercole for sure. But yeah, rather than come home and go past him, I'd jump my fence. And I don't know, my dad and I talked. I think my dad kind of said to me one day, he goes, I'm getting sick and tired of you running from these guys. I'm going to get you in karate. Well, he knew I wanted to be in karate anyway. So here we are. He took me down to the dojang, and it was a Tong Sudo school. That my instructor was a friend of Chuck Norris at the time. And I'm probably going over some of your other questions right now. I'm going to probably overlap with some of that.
You're good.
But when I first joined, my instructor was talking about his friend Chuck Norris that lived in the LA area. And, Chuck back then in 69, he wasn't a movie star. I think he'd been in a movie called, not Breaker, that was later. I know there was something where he was like a truck driver, but I think he took a minor role in that, like 1968, 69. So Chuck had hosted a tournament, or he was hosting a tournament the weekend. I think it was my very first week in karate. And I don't even know if I think I had maybe one class. My instructor said, do you want to go up to the tournament with us? So yeah, we all piled into his van, and I don't know, there's probably like 6 of us. It was packed van, and we went up and went to Chuck Norris's home. Went in his house, I think we had like tea or something, hung out for a bit, and Chuck put us up at his dojang at the time. And I just remember, wow, this was like a first class dojang. I mean, it was beautiful mats, spotless. He had, I don't know, must have had 4 shower stalls in the back there. It was like I'd never seen anything like that. Yeah. And anyway, we hung out there, went to, I believe the tournament was in Anaheim, probably at the convention center. So I went and checked out this this tournament. And, back then, there wasn't any safety gear, at least not that I know of. This particular tournament happened to have a boxing ring. So there was guys doing full contact karate, and those boys were getting hurt. When they walk out of the ring, they were busted up and bloody. But, the rest of the guys, they were sparring. It was like contact, but control was always emphasized. So my memories back then, we had contact, but you weren't trying to like kill the guy. Sure. If you were, it was in a loving manner, so he'd get back up and want to do it again. But it was a really great experience for me. And, we came back home and I began training. Like I say, I think I'd had maybe 1 class before we went up to Anaheim and visited with Chuck Norris. And, Chuck used to come down for our belt testing once in a while. I believe he was there at my green belt test. So it was, I've got a lot of memories, from when I was a kid. I've actually never seen him since. But like I say, he was a friend of my instructors. I'm not sure the details, how they met, whatnot, but that was the start for me.
Well, that's a cool story, like as a kid, meeting this guy and kind of knowing that he was famous in some way. And then like looking back, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Back then, Chuck was known to me as he was a former champion. Now, stuff that I've read about him sound like he was competing into the early 70s, but I believe when I met him, my instructor had introduced him as a former world champion. And I don't know what all the details there, but obviously he had quite a track record in the karate scene. Sure. And that was a pleasure getting to meet him. But again, I do remember back then where he was just getting started with his movie career. And some of you guys might remember a show back in the 70s called, or even 69, called Room 222. It took place on this college campus, and it was a series about what went on in these classrooms. And one episode they were doing was a kid that was getting picked on, and they decided, maybe karate might be good for him. Guess who the instructor was? So Chuck Norris. And I remember, I just looked this up the other day. They only have, in the credits, they only have one of my training partners at the studio. His name was David Ramsey. He was a young black belt, which there was very few at the time, but David was in that, is like the hotshot little young martial artist. And then there was like 2 or 3 of my other instructors at the time that got to go take part, with minor roles in that one episode. And my memory tells me that was the start of his career. He started getting more and more involved in movies. He had a lot of friends that thought he should make a go at with movies. Steve McQueen, I believe, being one of his students. And here we are years later.
So how long did you end up training at that studio?
I trained there for about a year.
Okay.
And I believe I got my green belt. Chuck Norris was there at my green belt test. I ended up leaving that school. I'll just come up front. Some of my prior instructors weren't the greatest of role models.
Gotcha.
And things that had happened when we were there at the studio. My parents, ended up pulling me out. And so I took a break from formal training for about 7 years.
Okay.
I still trained on my own, worked my kicks, blocks, still wanted to be really good at karate. Wanted to be like Bruce Lee, wanted to be like Chuck Norris.
Well, what inspired you to do that? It's I mean, you're still probably what, 13 or 14. What kept you still training on your own in those teen years? Just
I had friends during that time, and we used to get together. We were all into Bruce Lee movies.
Sure.
We'd all pile in cars and go. By time I was like 16, we'd be going to the theaters, watching all the karate movies. And I had friends. We would spar. Pretty much that's all we do back then. We'd spar with each other, and I'd of course get beat up more than I cared. But it was fun.
awesome.
I still have all my teeth.
Yeah. I have some great sparring friends. I've done lots of sparring with. One of them just said hello. Louis Donahue. He's here in Region 8. Says hello.
Oh,
and,
hey, how you doing?
Actually, and globally from Mauritania, Tongsu Do is one of the newest countries represented in World Tongsu Do.
Oh, wow.
Hello. The South Africa group.
Wow.
Like that. I'm blanking on the region. So how did you find your way back to formal training, and what was that in? Was that in Tongsu Do, or was that something else?
No, I ended up, grew up in Chula Vista. When I was 16, we ended up moving. My parents had divorced years before that, and my mother wanted to get us, I was living in Chula Vista. Mom wanted to get us out of the city. I guess she was concerned that little Johnny might get in trouble. And so she had a boyfriend at the time, and we had family up here in Oregon. My mother's sisters lived up here, and or at least one of them at the time. And we ended up moving to Oregon, moved into a little town, Winston, Oregon. So I finished school, and I kept training a little bit, best I could on my own. Went through my teenage trials and tribulations, gotten my share of trouble and all the good stuff. And I ended up, I went to work at Roseburg Lumber. It's one of the large lumber mills here in the Roseburg area. And again, going back to, I always had this dream, this desire to be good at martial arts, good at karate. And I don't know, one day I was 20 years old and talking to my wife. I had just had a baby girl, and I said, I'd like to get in karate again. What do you think? So she was supportive of that. And I signed up at a school in Roseburg. It was called Hawaii. The instructor named it, it was called Hawaiian Karate, but probably not like the Hawaiian karate that maybe most people think. It was pretty much a mixture of Taekwondo, Tongsu Do, Kempo, just a blend. Looking back, basically my instructor just took pieces from different arts that he had studied, and he just balled it up, and I think he just took what he liked, and created a system out of it. And so that got me going back when I was 20, and then I've been in formal training ever since that time. I'm 64 years old now, so got a fairly good run.
Yeah.
So mostly, back then, our training was like an hour and a half. years ago, before that, I believe in Chula Vista, I think training, it was between an hour and a half to 2 hour classes. And like really, I've listened to other guys talk about this. For me, the biggest difference wasn't so much what we trained in, maybe it was how we did it, the discipline and the nurturing, the way we nurtured students was different. For instance, I can remember doing knuckle push-ups when I was 12 on a 2x4. We had a railing around the mats, 2x4 rail. And, if we'd get in any trouble, we were disciplined for anything. It was, on the 2x4, rather than say just push-ups on a mat, you probably couldn't get by with that nowadays. Probably wouldn't be looked quite as favorably. I don't know, maybe some schools. But, and then I can remember sometimes instructors walking around and literally punching you in the gut and like to knock the wind out of you. Whereas today, I remember one time I had an instructor at my school kick a kid's leg because it was bent. And I had a mom say, if he ever does that to my kid, no, this is like 30 years ago. Okay, but she told me, if he ever does that to my kid, I'm going to punch him in the mouth. And so, that kind of stuff was kind of going by the wayside, I think, many, many years ago. The school I was in Roseburg I began that that was 1977.
Okay.
So in training there, we worked mostly, we did our basics, forms. We did a few forms, but I think, if I remember right, we only knew maybe 6 forms. Think about the requirements we have in the World Tung Soo Do Association for first dan. I think maybe I had 6 forms and maybe that many 1-steps, maybe that many Hosen Sul. Mostly what we did back then was sparring, and it was tournament oriented. And of course I was 20 years old. So that was probably my, my favorite part of training, was sparring. But I believe with that school I was in, I don't think we put as much emphasis on what I would call proper stances and hip twisting. I always felt like that was lagging. Sure. I remember I didn't even really learn to use my hips to what I thought was correct until I met Master Stine, which was in about 1981, 81, I believe I met him.
And so how did you meet him? Did he have a studio in your area?
Master Stine moved to Roseburg, I believe in 81.
Okay.
And he had opened up a studio and in a health club. So what had happened is again, I had a couple of my instructors they ended up not all the best role models. And in fact, this particular instructor, he'd been arrested. He was, drugs were going on and just all kinds of goofy stuff going on in the school. And a few of the students had left. I ended up getting my black belt in, I think like 81. And I ended up moving back down to San Diego for about 6 or 8 months. I tried to make a career in life and health insurance. So I had family down in San Diego that offered me a job for like 4 months. After that, I'd be on my own. And it just didn't quite work out for me like I had planned. So, I've had kind of a roundabout way of becoming a studio owner, and really none of that was really planned. It's just kind of the way things, for me, it's kind of the way things worked out. I get back down to San Diego, thought I was going to set the world on fire, making lots of money. And being this big, successful insurance guy. And it just didn't quite work out. So I worked my way back up to Oregon. And then I hooked up with Master Stine. And he had actually called me and asked me what I was doing. I believe I was in between jobs at the time, wasn't making a lot of money. You know, I'd just moved back from San Diego, and but he, you know, we liked each other. You know, I liked him. First time I met him, you know, I was like, wow, this guy really has got his stuff together. You know, he's really skilled, and he's a nice guy, respectful. And so when he called, he said, well, it's not even going to cost you any money. So I'm like, well, I can't make any excuses now. You know, I got to go. So he said, if, you know, why don't you just teach some classes? So I went into his studio with, you know, I don't think I never did pay him a dime for training, but I taught, you know, I taught classes. I had been teaching a little bit as a brown belt in the Hawaiian karate style. But Master Stine gave me you know, this opportunity to join up with them. And, you know, and at that time, there was probably 6 or 8 of our black belts that had joined Master Stine. They had all, you know, just had enough with the stuff going on at the other school. And, you know, we all hooked up with Master Stine. And, you know, my dad used to tell me the best thing that he ever did for me was getting me in karate. Told me that probably up until the day he passed away. He was 92 years old, but best thing he ever did was get me in karate. He said the worst thing he ever did for me was give me a car. When I was 16, he gave me a car. He handed me down. He gave me a car for my 16th birthday, and I think back, I was like, yeah, Dad, you're probably right. That was probably I'm wondering why I'm still alive. But here we are.
Yeah, right. I was going to ask you this. So this is a good question to segue into. Robbie Kerr asks, what's your favorite type of bass to use? Being a fellow bassist and musician, I follow your band as well. So I was going to ask, in what time frame of your life did you get into music? Was it younger as a kid, or?
Yeah, actually, I started playing the accordion when I was about 7 years old. And I played until I took lessons until I was 12. So I played in an accordion band, which we had like weekly rehearsals in San Diego. I think it was in like Old Town area, which the San Diego guys know exactly where I'm talking about. And we would play for events. We'd play in like tournaments, do a lot of competitive accordion competitions up in like the Los Angeles area. Played at the county fair. We ended up on a television show. Remember, we were on a show called Buck Weaver. It was like this Western show back in, gosh, let's see, I'd have been 7 or 8, 1965 probably. But we had a few episodes that we did on the show. I'm not sure exactly why they did that, but I had a band, we had a drummer, there was like 3 accordion players. And I remember one of the episodes, I still have a photo of this. They brought these 2 girls in, these hula dancers. So they were kind of dancing behind the band. You know, we're like, at the time, we're like 10 years old. We're like, oh, this is great. This is a pretty good job. Although it didn't pay real well.
Right.
But, you know, it was kind of fun. And then, so I stopped playing accordion, I think when I was 12. I just got, you know, for me, it wasn't the hip thing anymore, I guess. Okay. And I got into listening to rock and roll, you know, and it's like, I want to play a guitar. I want to make some noise. I like that screechy sound and that distortion. And so I started playing guitar, I think probably when I was like 13. I took lessons. So I think pretty much every instrument I played, I took lessons, except for bass. I play bass now, but I never took lessons. But I took a couple of years of guitar lessons down in Chula Vista, and I continued to play guitar, in little bands and stuff, garage bands through high school, and a little bit up here in Oregon. I ended up giving that up until I think my 10-year high school reunion. And one of my friends was saying, John, if you start playing guitar again, I'll give you my guitar. He had this 12-string guitar, and I'm like, you gonna give that to me? We had the reunion, and there's a few of us that used to play together in high school. And it's like, oh, maybe we'll get together and jam, But I said, okay, I'll start playing. So he gave me the guitar. So we started putting this little band together back in like 1985. And we needed a bass player. So we're like, I'm looking around like, there's nobody playing bass here. But we had a bass guitar. I said, well, give me that bass. I can play it. If you can play guitar, you can play bass. You may not be able to play it well, but you can play it. And so I said, give me that thing. So I started playing it, and I became the bass player in the band. And so that was 85. And, I've been playing in bands ever since. I've taken some time off. The pandemic kind of put a real shutdown, of course, on live playing, although I got together with some guys that wanted, a couple of us still wanted to play. My son and my drummer, we were like, we got to find somebody to play with. We're ready to go. This was, I don't know, October last year. It's like, we're tired of sitting here doing nothing. Let's get together with some people. So we did. And, we do it to have fun.
Yeah, sure.
Nobody's out trying to set the world on fire. It's just something we do for fun. I enjoy, a lot of guys fish with their sons, fish or hunt. My son and I talk. He mentioned to me the other day, he goes, this is like our fishing. Right. I'm like, well, yeah, it is. And if you haven't heard my son, he's a really good guitar player, like extremely way beyond anything I've ever or will do. Not saying that because he's my kid. He just he teaches guitar for a living, and so I'm real. It's great to be able to play with him in the band. It's really great that he likes playing the same kind of stuff that we like to play. Funny, a lot of these young kids, they like classic rock.
Right.
I hear little kids that their parents tell me he likes this. It likes this Led Zeppelin stuff, and or Guns N' Roses. I'm like, that's funny to me. It's like, I never wanted to listen to my parents' music when I was a kid.
And my kids like some of that stuff. We listen to a lot of Van Halen together.
There you go. Yeah.
It's cool knowing that you've done karate as a living, to see your son kind of living that dream and doing something that he loves for a living, being able to teach music. I'm sure you're proud of him for that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah. So you're telling me I'm never going to have a Master Hutchinson bagpipe, Master Auer accordion show anywhere?
Hey. Oh, I don't know. I still have my accordion in this closet here. It's an old Sonola. And
you can break it out. You can do it live if you want. Bring it out.
It is a 120 bass accordion. It's kind of small, but yeah, every once in a while I'll pull that thing out and attempt to play it. It's like, nah. I can still play a major scale on it. For some reason, that kind of burned into my brain, my muscle memory. But everything else is like, huh, I used to play that.
Master Bobby Nelson chimed in earlier and said hello.
Oh, hey, Master Bobby.
He also said he would pay to see that duet. I would too, sir. Hey, you got some time. You can get it out of the closet. You got until next March to try to dust it off.
That might be brutal. Not
Yeah.
not for him, but for me. I think it would hurt my ears just getting back into it.
Robbie says we used to tease about getting a WTSD band together at Worlds with Master Tobacco and drums and anyone else that plays music.
I know we have talked about that for sure. Yeah.
So I had the chance to talk to Master Tobacco, and he obviously got to train a lot with Master Stine. So going back to you're training with Master Stine, I haven't got a chance to train with him, and I would love to get a chance to one day talk to him. But tell us about his background. I know he had a wrestling background as well as a martial arts background as well, and then maybe talk about training with him, and then eventually getting the chance to take over his studio when he moves.
Yes. So Master Stine, he has a degree in exercise physiology. He was assistant wrestling coach at Oklahoma State University before I had met him. And again, I met him in about 1981. He trained in kickboxing and Tong Sudo under Dr. Frank Scolarcio. And I actually had a chance to train I took my second Dan test under Dr. Scolarcio up here in Roseburg when Master Stine had the school back in, I'm guessing that was probably 1984, something like that. Master Stine was also testing, but yeah, from the first time I met Master Stine, when I walked into the gym, I saw him teaching. He was teaching, I think maybe Basai. But then I just watched him train, and I was just so really intrigued and impressed with his skill. When he would hit the punching bag, and he's not that big a guy, but when he'd hit that bag, it was like nobody hits a bag like that. I can't even kick a bag as hard as he was punching it. I mean, literally, it was like some of us would walk in and we'd just look at each other like, how does he get that power? And, he was always just been real relaxed and really explosive, when he was training. And like I say, when he hit that bag, it was just, it was incredible. I'd never seen anybody could hit a bag like that in my life. And, I had trained with some guys that were pretty good martial artists, but it was really impressive. And then when I met his instructor, Dr. Scolarcio, he was warming up on the heavy bag before the test. And that was another impressive man too. Talking to Master Stine and DeBaca, Duffield, Logan, those guys, they used to tell me that they'd never met anybody like Frank Scolarcio that was that kind of quality. And, I just thought, wow, well, I've met you guys and you guys are way beyond me. So I definitely don't want to mess with this guy.
Cool. So when did you get the opportunity to take over the studio?
Well, that was in 1989. So Master Stine ran the school. I think we were at a big gymnasium. It was a high school gym or a junior high gymnasium. And there was, I believe, a fitness center that was down below in the basement. So we were in the top section. So it was just this huge full-size gym that we had. And he had decided just due to family circumstances, that he was going to move back down to Santa Rosa to be with his kids. And which I was shocked. We were like, no, you can't leave. What are we going to do? And he had asked me if I want to take over the studio. I was a senior rank. And honestly, I was honored, but I didn't want to take on the responsibility of owning a school. So at that time, I was married. I had been remarried. So, and, I had a couple kids, and I was working for the car dealership. I was selling cars. I did that for about 7 years. So from about 1986 to 93, I guess, something like that. And, that kept me working long hours. Sometimes I couldn't just go home in the middle of a car deal. And so I balked on his offer. He didn't let up. He kept pushing me, and he's like, John, it'd be great. You'd be good at it. It'd be great for you. It'd be great for the students. And you're the senior student. You're the senior black belt in class. And so I pondered it, and we just kept talking. And financially, he made it to where it was virtually going to be impossible for me to lose. I wasn't going to have any financial risk, which was a concern. I wasn't starting my own school. I was taking over a school that had, I think, maybe 25 students at the time. And I think we were able to pay the bills at the time. We could pay the rent, but there just wasn't a lot left over, with what we were charging and the rent on the facility. But with the deal that he made me, the arrangement, as far as how I was paying for it, he made it to where I just couldn't say no. And I talked to my wife, and, I love training. I was training there anyway, 3 days a week. And I said yes. So, and here we are. So that was, when I look back, none of this was planned in my life. I didn't just say, hey, one of these days I'm going to take over like my students do with me. I'm going to take over your school when you get too old to teach. I never thought that. Never, ever thought about taking over the school and owning my own dojang until that time when he asked me to take over. So I guess, the responsibility then was put on me, and, we all do this. You step up, right. When you're given that opportunity. We know it's good for people. We know the students need, somebody, a leader in the pack, and you just do it. You do what you have to do. So I was very fortunate at the time that when I took over, I think there were 5 black belts that stayed around. So that being said, there were a number of the black belts that quit when I took over, which I think is probably pretty common anytime you switch, leaders. And we didn't do it just transitionally. It was abrupt. He moved. Right. So I had taught, classes up until then, but I'd also had some time out just due to my job and stuff where I wasn't training in group classes with them all the time. I was coming in during the day and working out on my own. And so when I took over, there was a few students that, I wasn't Master Stine. And, I was thinking, well, I'm not him. I don't have those skills like he does. That's not me. And so they bailed, and a few of them stuck around. One of them is still with me, Mr. Dennis Hutchison, whom I think a lot of you guys know. Hutch had been off during the pandemic for probably almost a year, and he just came back like 2 weeks ago. So Mr. Hutch is 74. He will be 75 this month. Wow. And so it was like awesome. He came back. I thought he's going to be gone, but Hutch was there in the beginning when I took over. And Hutch and I had been trained at the Hawaiian karate school together. So we go back, well over 40 years. Without these black belts that stuck around and helped teach class, I don't think I'd have been able to pull it off. I really don't. But fortunately, if I needed to work late, I would call, I'm not going to make it in, or I'm going to be 30, 40 minutes late. And they had the classes running. So I never had to worry about, they just did their thing, and I'm just grateful they did. And yeah, here we are.
As to have it's fun. Sometimes I forget that running a martial arts school it's a small business, and to have any business have been open. I mean, even before you, however long Master Stine had it, and then 32 years now, it's Roseburg, right? Roseburg Martial Arts.
Yes.
Is a testament to what you're doing, and like you said, the people that have helped you throughout the years, that's outstanding. And so congratulations on the longevity. It's just one of those, some of us just won't go away.
Right. Yeah. Well, for me, it's just, I think back, it's like, if he wouldn't have moved, what would I be doing today?
Right.
I was selling cars then, and I don't know what I'd have been doing. This has been the best thing that I did. So for anybody out there listening, if you're not teaching, maybe it's something you want to tackle.
Yeah. I always joke. One of the things my grandmother said when she was alive, she used to ask me when I was going to get a real job. I switched over. I worked for a bank for years, and then I got the opportunity to teach martial arts full time. And she's like, "You're still teaching that karate stuff?" And yeah. When are you going to get a real job? Well, I kind of like this job, and it pays the bills. So hopefully never.
Yeah. Well, and that being said, I haven't had a real job since probably mid 80s. After I got back from San Diego, I went back to work at the mill. I worked at a mill for 7 years out of high school. Went to work on my 18th birthday at Roseburg Lumber in Dillard. And I was still in high school. I had like 3 weeks to go. I was working from 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. in the morning. So we're working like this 9-hour shift. And sorry about that.
That's all right. You're a popular guy.
But I worked there for 7 years, and then I moved to San Diego. Came back, did some odd jobs here and there, whatever I could to make a living. And I went back to the mill for like 6 months. At that time, I got laid off. That was probably, 84, something like that. There was one time when I was teaching classes for Master Stine during the afternoons, because I was working night shift. So I would go in and teach, and then I would go to work at the mill. But that's the last real job that I've ever had. Because obviously when you're selling cars, that was the common thing. When are you going to get a real job? I mean, you don't get a paycheck unless you're selling a car.
Yeah, hustling.
We used to joke with the new guys, telling them, how's it feel to work a whole week and not make a dime? That's kind of mean.
Yeah, but sometimes the truth hurts.
Well,
we've been talking, and it's been a great conversation so far. I wanted to touch base on meeting Grandmaster Shin. So you've been with the association. When did you? I guess was Master Stine? Was he an association member from like the charter?
I remember we went to the championship in '86.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember I had flown there by myself. He and a number of the students had flown in there days before, a couple days early. So yes. Before that, we were hooked into the Mutaquan system under Frank Scolarcio.
Okay.
Same with Master DeBaca, Duffield, Logan, Master Lowe. I'm probably leaving somebody out. I'm not sure. Hopefully not. But
So do you remember the first time you got a chance to meet Grandmaster Shin? Or maybe it's just some
I don't know if
story.
I actually remember the very first time that I met him. But I do, I was regional director for 16 years. So I did get a chance to spend more time than some, but a lot less time than some of the guys from Region 8 guys. So yeah, I really don't know if I remember the very first time I met him. I'm not positive if I met him at the championship in '86. I probably did, but that memory's kind of been, I guess, displaced. But I have a lot of good memories of him, just hanging out with him during our, regional championship times. Those are some of the most memorable for me.
So you're in Region 1, right? So you were
Yes, sir.
the Region 1 director for 16 years.
Yes.
So yeah,
I took over. I believe it was 2001 when I took over as director. Master DeBaca was prior to me, and Stine had been in there before that. That was I took over in Region 1 when we split, because Region 1 used to include all the way to the Mexican border, up to Alaska and Hawaii. So Master DeBaca had, he was making trips to San Diego for Don testing. He lived in Santa Rosa, and then he was also flying to Hawaii, flying to Alaska to do Don testing. So I believe Master Claremarsh took over director down in the southern part of the California, same time I took over Region 1.
Gotcha. How was your time doing that?
It was good. I a lot of good memories. It's work.
Sure.
There's stressful times being a director, and I remember Kwajanim Shin one time, he was talking to me about, if you've ever put on a tournament or, any regional event, there's stress doing it. There's headache, and he kind of explained to me that, as a leader, as a director, that's our job, is to kind of bear that burden so the other members would enjoy it and have a good time, and, when you think about it, I mean, your parents do the same thing for you when you're a kid, regional directors and association leaders, we do things that may not be as pleasant for us. There's some stress and hard work, long hours, but it also helps make the ride go smooth and more enjoyable for everyone else, in the party. So I think I was fortunate, though, had a lot of good talks with him, a lot of good times. And I do remember one time he was up here in Oregon, and we took him up the North Umpqua River area, which is just a few miles from where I live now. And I took him to a place called the Colliding Rivers. It's where the North Umpqua and Little River collide. And well, he wanted to go down a little bit lower. And I said, yeah, sir, maybe we ought to hang up here, stay up here it's on a cliff where we were, probably about 80 feet off the water. And So here's Grandmaster Shin. He's walking down this thing, and I'm thinking to myself, oh no, I don't want him falling in. Let's hope he doesn't fall in, and it's like, sorry. I'm also thinking on the selfish side, I thought if he falls in, that is going to be the perfect Master of Disaster award. There's no way I'm going to get out of that. So I'm thinking all this stuff, but he made it down to the bottom, right there to the water, and there was salmon swimming around in the river that we could see. And it was just a memorable time for me. I was terrified that, oh man, if he falls in, I don't want to go swimming after him, but I will.
Yeah, my wife and I have been watching the show Top Chef, and this season, it's based in Portland, and we were talking about, we've never been to Oregon, so you're talking about that makes me want to come even more. It seems like a beautiful place out there. You obviously have been there for a long time.
Yeah, been here in Oregon since 74, 73, I guess.
Yeah, I have to make a trek out to Region 1 to come visit you guys.
That's right. You'll have to do that, and we'll put you in that dojang floor.
Absolutely. I always love coming to different dojangs. Master Nelson chimed in. The last time we went to Seattle, I got a chance to train with him, and Master Williams, Master Elmore. It was a good time.
Yeah, I always enjoy having instructors come from out of town. I just had one of my former students spend 3 weeks with us this last month. She's not in the World Tung Sudo. She's on her own down in the San Diego area. So I'm still working on getting her in the association. But, it was always great just to see how people grow. She started, I think, about the same time Master Nelson trained.
Gotcha.
In fact, I have pictures. They were on the same demo team together.
Awesome. That's
back
cool.
in early years, and I always enjoy having people come in and visit.
That's great. Master Nelson said, if I make it to Oregon, then he'll make the trip up to come at the same time. So we'll have to figure that out.
That's right.
Sir, we're getting close to the hour mark. I want to thank you for joining me. Is there anything else that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
I think being in the martial arts, everything that led up to my taking over the school from Master Stine, I'm very grateful to him. I owe him, the world, and it's been a wonderful journey, and I look forward to, doing this for the rest of my life, or at least till I physically can't. I think it's great, and I think the world needs us. It needs organizations like us. The kids need us. I'm glad to be a part of that.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for all that you do and for joining me today. And if you talk to Master Stine, put in a good word for me. I've sent him a couple messages on Facebook.
I'll do that. All right, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tung Su. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks, sir.